name is Tibeli and I welcome you to another explosive episode of Modern Youth and African Indigenous Spirituality. On my side, I have the beautiful Nkululeko, also known as Nkuli the Great.
Hi.
And we have an amazing guest in studio today. He is not only a humanist, he's a commentator and an activist. He has over 120,000 followers on TikTok and over 1 million views of all his videos across social media. Is the one and only Pieter Kriel.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming today. So we have a very interesting topic to discuss today. It's religion versus spirituality. And this topic is to give insight to those who have had several questions. What is religion? What is spirituality? Is it the same? Are there any differences in between? And I believe this is the show to truly enlighten everybody, right? And also just speak about how the youth navigate around these topics, you know. So before we get into that, I'd actually love to get to know more about Pete. So talk to us about yourself. Tell us about yourself, what you're about.
So I grew up in Heidelberg, Gauteng,
Right.
which is a small town in the very south of Johannesburg. It's very conservative, as many people would probably know, and it has a conservative school. We had a very large white student base and only a few black kids, right? So growing up, you experience a lot of these mindsets, negative mindsets, right? But once you start reading, once you start going into education and literacy and so forth, you have to start becoming humble, because a person that believes he is superior to another person cannot be educated, because education requires humility. And it requires deconstruction. And that is what my life really has been about. It's been about deconstructing and trying to be an activist for free thought and humanity.
And you know, being on activism and all of that, you have made headlines on TikTok, right? You are hated and you are loved at the same time. How do you navigate through the backlash that you have received, mostly from your community or people that just don't generally agree with you?
So I, of course, appreciate all the kind words and support I get in doing this, but that is not the reason I'm doing it.
Right.
I want to do this to ignite a flame within the youth, to not say that we want to be the future, because that would require them to be old, because the future is still far away. They need to be present to make a difference now. And if I could say one thing to the youth is, don't wait as long as I waited. Don't wait until you're 20. Start when you're 50. Because it's very hard to deconstruct a mentally prepared 25-year-old white man than it is to help a 6 or 7-year-old white boy understand reality for what it is and not get indoctrinated to a point where he can't be deconstructed.
Yeah, and to add to that, actually, there is a saying, in Zulu, which means you start them young, right? And now, just what inspires you to keep on speaking so broadly, not only about, you know, politics and social issues, but also religion and spirituality as a whole? What inspires that fire?
I think that we need to talk about topics that are uncomfortable, that mainstream media ignores, because at the end of the day, if we don't talk about it and we don't provoke these questions, nobody will. And when we don't talk about it and when we don't debate it and discuss it and fight about it, we cannot grow as humans, because we are the only species of animal on this planet that has the ability to reason and articulate and debate, and we should use that.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. Nkuli, what do you think?
I think, well, based on your background itself, you're very bold and very brave for going out on the platform and actually speaking about the uncomfortable things. And I do agree with you. If we want to address certain issues, we need to address the uncomfortable things and face reality and actually just face it head on and be able to just, you know, again, from young. Starting from young, and if we have anyone our age itself, like as we are youth, it's up to us to take it into our own hands and take the initiatives by ourselves to say that we are going to make the change. But yes.
Because essentially investing in the future starts now. And if we are the future, Therefore, we need to start partaking in it now, you know. So moving on to today's topic, right? What is religion to you?
I think religion, depending on who you ask, you'd get a different answer. But
Absolutely.
I'd tell you
Yes.
that I believe religion to be a structured organization with a kind of code or guide that tells you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And it has endorsed much violence in the past, organized religion, whether that be Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever it has been. I'm against that form of religion because it tells you to be a specific way. And if you're a human, you can't be set in a specific way because we're evolving beings. We have to change over time. We have to change our opinions and so forth. So I go against that notion of adhering to organized religion. It's just
Yeah. And just to add, hey, if you look at your Google explanation, it says a system of beliefs. And clearly, the moment something is a system, that tells you it's man-made already, right? And if something is man-made, then why should it be of more importance to those that it doesn't apply to, you know? Because anything that is man-made has a flaw in it.
subjective.
Exactly, it's subjective to whoever created it. And Nkuli, on to you, what is spirituality?
Well, to me, spirituality is a way of life, right? And one thing we should all understand is that we are all spirit before we are flesh. So we need to put our spirit first. And we practice spirituality in different ways. So then, obviously, in my context, I'm practicing African Indigenous spirituality through the African context, right? And again, it's just how I say, it's free will, but living by right and wrong. Your spirit knows. Yes, we have the heart, we have the mind, right? Those are factors itself, but then your spirit knows whether something is right or wrong. At the end of the day, we still do need guidance, and hence why practicing African Indigenous spirituality, for me, I'm under the guidance of Imboni, Dr. Uzuleza Khatebe. But yeah, that's what spirituality is for me. Yes.
Right. So, as broad as you mentioned, very diverse. What is spirituality to you, and in which context? And I'm asking this specifically because people feel like whenever we talk African Indigenous spirituality, or we talk spirituality as a whole, we're only limiting it to Africans. But like she said, we are spirit before we are flesh. Therefore, everybody has the right in them to evoke that spiritual consciousness in them. So, what is spirituality to you in a, I don't want to put it, but in a wide consensus, if you'd like to put it that way. Yeah.
I think most white people throughout history, we've stuck to organized religion. Because to some, we have to agree to some large extent, Europe dominized or created organized religion as we know it today, as the westernized version. Spirituality to me is seeing the greatness and the awe in the beauty of humanity and the universe and the planets and the stars. Going out at night with my girlfriend and sitting on the grass and looking at the stars and wondering, where does this come from? That to me inspires me to ask more questions, and that to me is spirituality. It's truth seeking, it's justice, and it's unity. And I think that is that, if that aligns with what it means to be African spiritual, perhaps I do align with that. But I don't worship any being in the physical sense. I do, however, I don't deny the fact that there might be a divine force that ignited all of this. I'm just not calling it Yahweh or Jesus or Buddha or whatever.
So we know that there's a phenomenon that religion was brought by Europeans, right? And strange enough, years later, right, it's practiced or followed more by Africans more than it is by Europeans. We are seeing this change, this dynamic where in Europe, Europeans are actually denouncing religion. They are closing churches, you know, they're turning them into businesses. And their lives are getting better each day. Yet the African man who is so stuck on this religion, their lives are not getting better. How do we explain this phenomenon? Like, does it truly attest to something of mental slavery, or it could be more than that?
Well, as we know, what we already established is that we now know that religion itself, especially the religious texts that come with it, is that it is just a doctrine, again, telling you how to live and all of that, telling you one, two, three. But then obviously, as we humans, again, and we are spirit, we are ever evolving, right? So then we need to, this phenomenon, in my understanding, is that people are now awakening. Yes, we can say Europeans are now, denouncing the very religion that they brought to Africa. Yet we have a few of us who are also getting, how do I say, spiritual awakened, right? It's because life needs to go on, right? We still need to go back to our spiritual state, our original spiritual state, and eventually, again, the universe is eventually going to push us, as we're already in this phenomenon itself ourselves. We are being pushed in the direction of, spiritually liberating those who cannot. And we can't blame them, is because they've already been indoctrinated by religion, and religion itself doesn't allow forward thinking, doesn't allow the growth mindset whatsoever. And in spirituality, like I said, it's free will, living by right and wrong, and knowing what's right and wrong.
Comes from within.
Yes. It comes from within. Yes, it's just that. So once it comes from within, again, we just need, like we are doing, because some do need guidance, and we are modern youth. We obviously need to talk about this in a context that the youth is able to understand and connect with it. But yeah.
And furthering on, the spiritual awakening that's happening, referencing your videos, right? There are some where you do speak on religion, factually so, and when now the dynamic is when we as Black people speak to our fellow Black people on religion and try just to highlight them of one, the origin of it, the effects of it, the impact that it has, on people, and essentially as a human being, because you are just taught to just believe, then something will provide, instead of truly going into it and working. Now, we also get the very same people that are backlashing us, they are siding with you. So now in terms of the mental slavery thing, do you feel like there is still some form of white superiority that is still instilled in people? Because how is it that they're listening to you, but then they're, insulting and backlashing us?
Absolutely. I think that's the paradox I'm fighting to expose.
Right.
Why all of a sudden do we have Africans listening to a white man lecturing them about their history and their spirituality and religion? I think I don't approach it with that, though I see the suspicion. My thing has always been, I've never wanted to speak for Black people. I've wanted to speak with them and alongside them. And I think it starts by, that's why I'm a humanist. I don't like these race characteristics. I want us to live by the definition of we're human, even though we're far way off. So educating people, whether they be white, that's my main objective. It's educating fellow whites, because that's where the biggest problem is deconstructing the white community. But still, if Black people, African people find my message, to be soothing and true, that's great. Whatever youth takes hold of it.
I like that you don't want to separate, the races, because at the end of the day, one thing that supersedes it all is spirituality. Spirituality unites, as you mentioned earlier, and it goes beyond race, it goes beyond ethnics, it goes truly beyond the differences that we come across as human beings. And so now we know that one of the effects of colonialism, of course, was immigration, mass genocides, all of those, loss of land, loss of families, especially in the Black communities, right? So now, moving forward, do you think that, as much as we say we live in a democratic world, do you think that the majority, which is the African people, which were once ruling, which were once powerful, do you think they'll ever go back in power?
In terms of spirituality?
In terms of spirituality, but also politically, like when we just encompass everything, right? Because if we go with the rule of democracy, where the majority is in power, therefore the majority should rule and should guide, right? So in that consensus, do you think we'll ever go back?
Well, I think democracy in itself, though it has great aspects, I think it's flawed in itself. And we need to start accepting that democracy alone isn't going to do it for Africa. Because democracy has been, let's be honest, as well as the education system and everything Africa has adopted since the end of colonialization, when Europeans went back to Europe, has been Western. It's been Western philosophy, it's been Western education, it's been Western imprint. I've always advocated for Africa to take its own direction. Some people call me a Pan-Africanist, some don't. Some say you cannot be a Pan-Africanist if you are white. I believe that is absolutely false. You can be a Pan-Africanist if you believe in the future of Africa and the people of Africa. And I don't want Africa's future to depend on the West or the East. I want Africa to decide its own future.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to be white to be a Pan-Africanist as long as you are spiritually rooted. That is what defines you, that is what sets you apart, right? And you have shown such great connection to Africa, and across the videos and everything that you have shared, So, Unkoli, do you share the same sentiments?
Yes, I do. In terms of again, as long as we are rooted in our spirituality and we are guided the correct way, in the right spiritual path itself, we are then able to then tackle the problems that we face, right? How do I say this? African solutions, African problems, right? Just like how you said, we're still using Western systems, right? They do not adapt to us as Africans itself. So for as long as we do not change those very systems, we're going to be stuck in this loop of, who is, what are we, who are Africans, what is our position in the world, and we're just not going to be, evolving as Africans.
And I think we'll always have a global problem as long as we've not fixed Africa. Why? Because Africa is the birthplace of humanity. It's if you look deep enough, you see Africa all along. And you have to admit then that if we fix Africa and we uplift Africa to the standards of other great nations, what potential does the world not have? If Africa is fixed, I do believe we have a much brighter vision towards international cooperation. But Africa is the starting point for that.
Definitely the starting point, yes, Mother Africa.
And actually it would have led me to my next question, as in Africa being the birthplace of humankind and being blessed with so many resources that the whole world is still milking from. It's playing the role of a mother to the world. Then shouldn't the world pay homage to Africa in this context?
Absolutely. I think the world should pay respect and tribute to Africa because we've been exploiting Africa. The European continent to this day still exploits Africa. And Africa should not be seen as a continent. It should be seen as a living being for what it is. Because Africa, as well as all continents, are different ways of humanity expressing itself. But it's the same humanity. So, absolutely.
100% agree with you. I have nothing else to add.
Right. So now, when we look at comparative alignment, we know that, yes, Africa is the birthplace of humankind. But we also see something very interesting, that if we date back to before colonization, right, Africa used to move in a certain way. Our ancestors used to move in a certain way. They used to connect with God, which is the divine being, right, in a certain way. And things were better then. Now. So now if we are talking restoration, right, therefore, shouldn't we start with that, restoring people to their roots, how they did things? If we want to restore Africa, shouldn't we start there? And then essentially the political part, the economic part, everything else will fall into place thereafter. Because don't you think Africa was more aligned to nature back then than it is now?
100%, yes.
Right. And I feel like also this restoration would also, give solutions to things such as climate change, because a lot of the world is going south while people are going, the other direction. Yes. So I know, Peter, you are initiating a humanist walk in July. Tell us more about that.
So, alongside 3 other team members, we are 2 women, 2 men, 2 white, 2 black. We're walking for unity, dignity, and purpose. 30,000 kilometers, starting at the cradle of humankind, which we have official backing from, cradle as well as Maropeng. We're starting there, and we will be walking in the direction of Egypt. So we'll be crossing Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, showing the story of human migration out of Africa. But this time, we're not telling the story of humans splitting apart and settling in different parts of the world.
Okay.
This time, we have the same vision, the same mission, and the same direction as one human, as one species, and for one future. And 15 to 20 to 30 kilometers a day on foot.
On foot. Yeah, very strong man.
Yeah.
I try
It's
to be,
strong, yeah.
but I
Yes.
think I fall beneath what it means to be a strong man, because being a strong man, I don't think a strong man would be able to admit that he's a strong man, because being strong is being able to admit how many flaws and stuff you have, because you're evolving, right?
Yes.
So hopefully I'm toughened up by the time I return, which I think I will be, because it's going to be tough.
Yeah, no, you will be tougher. You're a strong man.
Yes, you come back with more information, because obviously you're
Yes,
traveling on foot.
yes.
I'm passing by different, tribes, cultures, and stuff like that. It's going to be a very great. Yeah. Can I join?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think actually this actually attests to how much knowledge is power, because the more you travel, the more you learn more things that you didn't know, right? And I think that's also one thing that we need to teach ourselves as the youth, as people, to go out there, learn different things, be open-minded, because again, if we want to deconstruct and reconstruct, we need to unlearn in order to relearn, right? And it's such initiatives that truly embark. When people take these initiatives, then they get to know more, they get to learn more, and I support that. I wish I could join you, but no.
To come back to the restoration of Africa, I don't
Yes.
think Africa needs restoration, because in order to restore something, you change the paint or you change the roof, but it's still the same building. Africa needs to be burned down, and it needs to be rebuilt in its original roots. It needs to be Africa first. It cannot be in the foundations of Europeanism. And I say that not because I'm against what it means to be of European descent. I say it because, as a white person of European descent living in South Africa, if I don't move with or in the direction of Africa, I will face irrelevance, and I will be forgotten in history. Because Africa is where the future is, and Europeans' future hasn't been in Europe, especially Afrikaners,
Yeah.
South Africans. Their future hasn't been in Europe for over 400 years.
Yeah.
So start adapting to Africa and to the people of Africa, or face irrelevance.
They might
That's
just
a
die
great
out.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially burn down Africa started from the beginning, going up, like all from the
Show
foundation.
the world what it means to be African. And I'm not
Yes.
saying that a white man should be in front leading it. I don't want to be the president ever. I think it takes way too much responsibility. I'd probably go into politics. I want to stimulate intellectual thought.
Alright.
I want kids in the townships to be stimulated by the ideas and thoughts that I have, so that they can grow up to do even better things than I have done. Because let's be honest, townships have amazing talent, but it's being hidden away systemically.
Yes.
That's the
Systemically
problem.
oppressed. Yes.
There's so many black kids, boys and girls, that have the exact same ability that I have to articulate themselves probably more better than I do. They just don't have the ability and the privilege to use that as I do.
So essentially, then, are we saying that in the near future, or in the Africa that we want, there truly is no space for religion?
I don't think, as long as humans fear change, right, which is a flight or fight instinct. When we see something we don't know, we immediately fear it. And we've evolved like that, and I think we have to change it. We have to be open to the idea that change is good. It's okay to change. Why do people oppose change? They oppose change not because what they have done might have been wrong, but because admitting that you have done wrong is worse than actually doing. It's much worse for you to admit that you've done wrong than to actually do wrong. So that is why we need a total transformation in how we think about Africa, and South Africa specifically, its people, and what it means to be African.
So essentially, what you would say also is that religion should also altogether just be moved away, because religion promotes lazy thinking itself. You know, the whole forward thinking. Because again, like you're saying, taking accountability. Same thing also in spirituality. You need to take accountability of your own actions, because what you give out to the universe is the universe going to give back to you, right? In religion, it's a thing of, I made a mistake. You know what? Let me just go and tell Jesus or Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because I used to be Muslim itself. Like, no, it's fine. I'm just gonna hide behind this blanket, because it just promotes lazy thinking. So you'd say that religion,
It's a hinder to human progress,
Yes.
but I don't think we can move it apart totally, not now, because it is people's favorite toy and it will remain their favorite toy.
yes,
So, and I'm quoting Christopher Hitchens,
Right.
right? You cannot argue with a brick wall, right? When you tell someone that you are not allowed to practice your religion, you're going against their right to practice what they want to practice. What we need to do is we do not need to move away religion. We need to move the mindset. What we do is we encourage them to think for themselves. We encourage them debate and discussions and so forth. So they make the conscious decision of moving away. Because if we move them away, it wasn't a conscious decision. You have to deconstruct by yourself. People always, I made a video the other day saying that all white people, to some extent, is racist. We have internalized racism. And it might not be true for every white person, but some white people are racist doesn't sell as well as all white people are racist.
Yeah,
yes,
that's true.
definitely.
And it gets the message through.
Yeah.
But you have to be provoked, and you have to, if you take offense, that just shows how much our work is necessary, because it shows fragility in your ego, and that is dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. It just shows exactly where you stand with the topic at hand. Now, as we are mentioning all these points, right? Yes. And I am looking at politics, right? Do you think politics has the solution for Africa?
I don't think the politics that we have now, especially in the context of South African parties, is not the solution. I voted for the EFF in the 2024 elections because I believed that they had the best constitution of all other parties. I changed my mind about promoting their cause. I wouldn't do that anymore, because I believe that Africa doesn't need more parties. Party politics is outdated.
Yes.
Africa needs a movement. South Africa needs a movement that says, like I said earlier, Africa, the people, and its vision and its future. And I think there is a future for Africa, but not along ordinary politics. We need a revolution of thought. Otherwise, it just can't happen.
So would you say that spirituality, in a way, because you mentioned that spirituality also promotes unity, and that's what Africans need, or the world in general, just unity. So it's a spirituality that promotes unity is what can actually, drive the force of, fixing Africa and the world.
Yes, I think, like I said earlier, African women especially, and why I say this is because every single person on earth shares their DNA with a black woman who lived in Africa 300,000 or 400,000 years ago. It's called mitochondrial Eve. It's evidence, right? That's why I think black women need to rise in Africa, and they need to be an example for the world. Because let's be honest, statistically, historically, black women has been the most left out demographic in history. And not because they're less of what it means to be a man or what it means to be a white man, but because they've been systemically...
The system doesn't allow them to partake in what's important.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and I think we've seen this like all across politics, the work environment, and unfortunately it has given rise to what I would term a bad side to feminism. Because yes, it's good for women to fight for their rights and their voices to be heard, right? But I feel like then there is a certain feminine power that we need to tap into other than the masculine. Because I feel like we want to be feminists, but in a masculine way.
Absolutely agree with that.
So then how then do we ensure that women are given their positions as feminists in the right way, right? Without them having to show up in their masculine energy.
You first, like I said, you have to burn down what it means in the African context. Now it means if you're a man, you'll get it. It's right in the African context. You'll have more ability to swing corruption or influence or whatever it means if you're a man, especially if you're a white man in Europe. So we need to burn down the African system and we need to make it gender equal, right? This thing about merit-based, right? You can't have women prove that they are of merit in a system that has been keeping them back.
Yes.
You have to start at the exact same point, and you can't do that if you refurbish what it means. You have to burn it down and rewrite it.
Can we truly equate men and women? Because I feel like essentially each one to their own role. For me, a woman symbolizes a feminine energy that keeps the whole, family intact. In fact, now when we say family and we're expanding it, we are looking at Africa is regarded as the mother, right? Therefore, she's the glue to everybody, right? But then a man also needs to rise up and be a man, take his role of what leadership, take his role of, providing and all of that. Then how do we balance these two roles?
I think ultimately, universally, it does seem like men and women have different roles. Men are supposed to do this, and women are supposed to do this. And I think there is some truth to instincts like it's biologically proven, like women who wake up during the night with the squeaking of a baby's voice. But men don't wake up by that. They wake up by the sound of leaves chittering outside. That's evolution, right? So we don't need to deny that a woman has better empathy than a man, because it's a fact.
Yes.
A woman has the ability to take a baby and silence it from crying way better than a man does. It's something biological, it's something spiritual. But that doesn't mean that we cannot evolve what it means to be a man. A man doesn't need to be violent and dominant to his wife or have her be submissive. You need to find that balance, right? Because I always say, when there's happiness, there has to be sadness. When there's good, there has to be bad.
Yin and
Things
yang.
have to balance out.
It's a balance of life.
So if there's a
yes.
high, it has to come down again.
Yeah.
And if men are, eventually it needs to find that balance. And if one is off, it's never going to find that balance. And you can't build from that.
Yeah, very interesting. I like your perspective on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much.
Moving right along, right? We know that as the youth, we get trampled much upon, especially when we want to involve ourselves in issues that truly matter, right? Of course, issues of religion, issues of spirituality, issues of politics, right? Now, what is the one thing that can truly, and I know you've mentioned this, but I think we need it like in direct words. What is the one thing that can truly unite us into, especially as a youth? Because now the youth is busy with groove.
Yeah,
The youth is
out and
busy.
about.
They are out and about, truly not caring about the important things of life. So, what is the one thing that's going to unite us and truly make us make a mark during our time of our youth?
If we had 20 independent citizen assemblies across the country where people put in their input, the government would have to listen. The biggest lie we've been taught in life is the dangers of corruption and power, because we've been lied to. Unity is more dangerous than corruption, and the government knows that. And people in power and institutions know that.
Yeah.
So they keep us divided on populist ideas. They have us believe we're different. You're black, I'm white. We're not the same, right? So once we get back to that origins, where we all come from, we can work that out. And I think to a large extent, people are racist because they see something from within. When we're racist or show hate towards someone else, we're reflecting what we see from within.
Yes.
And racists, when they are racists, they are denying the fact that they have that gene, that African gene in them, that they come from a black woman, and that hurts them. They cannot accept that fact, because that would mean that they have to be humble and accept that they are not superior to a black woman.
And I think, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing else to add. Literally, yeah.
Yeah. Truly, I think we need to, like, go back, root back, understand our origins, understand our roots, right? And as much as we'll forever sing spirituality because that's the essence of who we are before we are anything else. And with that, only that can root us back to who we need to be, what we need to be, and acknowledge what's important, right? So, in conclusion, it's been great, it's been fun, it's been.
Yeah, it's been amazing, eye-opening. Also, getting to your perspective. Yes, we see you on TikTok, blowing up. Probably do getting a couple of threats and certain messages, but then
It means I'm aiming in the right direction.
Definitely,
yes,
yes. It's a
yes.
good
And
measure,
we're here
yes.
to fight the fight with you. We are
Thank you very much for having
all
me.
the way.
It's been
Lovely.
thought-provoking.
It is. And I'd love for us to engage in more conversations going forward and truly enlighten the youth out there, right? Because at the end of the day, we need to be, like you said, there is more power in unity and there's more danger in unity. So the more we unite, the more of a difference that we can make.
And unite for the same cause with a good source, the root of it. Wow, where our end goal is clear, that we want to change Africa
For the land.
for the land, right? And also change the world itself.
Yeah.
But then doing it the correct way without pride or prejudice or destruction. Yeah,
Because if we do it like that, in 100 or 200 years, we have the same problem we have now.
exactly. We'll be back to square one.
Revolutionizing again. All right. So, any parting remarks from you?
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great discussing humanity and Africa with my intellectual peers. And I hope to do it again soon. Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure having you. Any closing remarks?
It was a pleasure having you today, yes, and also getting a better perspective on how your thought process is and your views on everything. But yeah, altogether, hopefully we can have you again in a different segment, probably a different topic. And yeah, good luck on your humanist walk. Have fun. I hope you get a lot of knowledge itself. Please do come back alive. Yeah. Yes.
Right, and that's it from us at Modern Youth and African Indigenous Spirituality. Join us again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us all across social media. Thank you, guys.